lot of indigenous families, they recognize, what people call first cousins as their brother and sister. So he's definitely like a brother to me, especially that because I only have a sister from my mom. So all my first cousins are like brothers and sisters to me. So yeah, that's he's a little bit younger than me, but not by much. So he's my brother. I can't get away with saying little because he's bigger than me.
Younger.
Yeah, he's younger, but I can't get away with saying little cousin. But that's one of my good cousin brothers. Yes,
and he's a singer too.
He's definitely a singer. He's a singer. That's his nickname in the group chat is his Jammer from the Slammer. But you could say that about some of the songs that he makes too. We call them jammers. So
how long is he in there for?
He has a knack for getting back in there. I should say that. He just he's trying to get right. So however many times it takes for him to, I guess is but just a constant reminder of how real life is, for a lot of indigenous Native men. And, we always, give that hardship to our women, and which is indirect. But I know in time that, people will realize what they're doing to themselves and to their families. And, he's still my cousin. He's still one of my good brothers. And, the reason maybe why we chose to put that in there was kind of, for a number one, Broder loved it. He just thought it was just so, in your face, like very matter of fact. But he also asked me about it, like how you were, is he in there right now? Is he, what's he in there for? That type of thing. But more for me, it was, I had to learn songs that way sometimes. And it wasn't, no one's fault or, at the time I'm just like, trying to find something to get it down on. So, I'm holding the recorded to a phone or, I'm trying to remember it. So there's that aspect of it for me. That's why I kind of added it to the sample bank that we collected through my archives and stuff like that. And that was one that jumped out to Broder. He actually really likes the very end of it where he's just like, all right, cool, that's it, but then he's actually locked up at the time. And, he just sang that one kind of, minute kind of thing. And he's like, hey man, can you get this down? But, I did tell him that I did want to use him singing from inside for the album. And, I had to get his permission and everything. But yeah, it was just like, one of our phone conversations, just like a regular conversation. And I've learned many songs over, jail time phone calls. So, and to Broder and I's love for hip hop and things like that, we remember the guys, rapping bars from the cell. So, and we wanted to kind of make the indigenous introduction. I'm not trying to glorify incarceration and stuff like that, but that's just my life as a singer.
When you say you learned a lot of songs that way, you're not talking specifically about him. You just mean generally that a lot of the people or a lot of the men in your life.
Yes, he has older brothers who are just as naughty. So they've spent their time, behind bars, and I've been the one, always here on the outside. They're my cousins. I do live in Wisconsin, and my brother's sister, my aunt, moved to Turtle Lake, Wisconsin, and had many boys and some girls up there. And they made their way to the Powwow circle through, song and dance. They had a drum group. Some of them danced when they were younger. So, I wasn't around them a lot because they lived in Wisconsin. But as I moved here, became a lot closer with them. So I would get associated with being one of the naughty brothers. But I'm a behaving cousin, I assure you.
We talk a lot about the idea of arts, but music specifically saving people's lives, of keeping, and you mentioned hip hop culture. And I think for a lot of MCs coming up, it was precisely that, something that you could put your, time and energy and creativity into, and that kept them out of the system. For you specifically, being involved in the powwows, do you feel like that's something that has kept you from going down a darker path?
I attribute a lot of that to my mother keeping me busy with all the urban city programs, the youth programs that there were. She kept me involved in the Minneapolis youth indigenous communities. There were some teachers at the time who, well, I feel very gracious and, very humble to growing up in a time where there were really, really important teachers in the neighborhood, in the school systems, that were taking the time and to teach, just these powwow songs to the youth. And, what I took from that was, this could be a tool, I can have in my bag to really kind of find some sort of cultural identity. It certainly scratches the surface. Powwow is not anything too deep culturally, but it is a lot of fun. It's usually mainly used for, social gatherings, bringing people together and really kind of just enjoying the gifts of life. Watching your kids or your younger siblings or relatives out there enjoying themselves. And for the most part, singing for me did keep me out the streets. And I really, thank my mother for that. My sister, a lot of my older role models who knew who I knew who I was. And, they kind of, kept a good path for me and, looked out for me. So 100% singing, had its way in my life to where it kept me busy, along with a basketball, a baseball, a football, anything like that. So if my mom kept me busy, and she had her ways of sheltering me, but that's okay. As a parent, I understand 100%. That's just like that commercial. You can't keep yourself from becoming your parents. So here I am 5 kids later. So hats off to my mom. I love you.
It's interesting. You said that the powwows themselves aren't too cultural, which is very surprising to me, because it seems like, obviously it's very tied to a community, yes, and tied to that culture and a sense of history there. But what's the disconnect?
I wouldn't say there was a disconnect. I think there's something deeper that we all have to understand now as contemporary indigenous people living in these modern times, I guess you could say. I won't want to romanticize us being a ancient culture or anything like that. I just believe that, we do have to strive to know the difference between powwow and ceremony and things like that. There are local ceremonies that happen everywhere local, and depending on the tribe, what's going on with them. Each tribe is different. They have their seasonal ceremonies and things like that, and those are the things that people should really be getting in touch with, if they're really kind of looking to respect their own cultural identity and things like that. But powwows are for everyone, man. Everyone should come and enjoy the powwow feeling, and the different arts and crafts, vendors of the food and stuff like that. It's very just like rodeo show like stuff. But I have an appreciation and a love for the music. And now the music has come from, stem from, the 40s, to these gatherings that are just random gatherings that these people are just having to have fun. And some of it came from the Wild West, Bill Cody shows and stuff like that. There's just a lot of things that adapted over time. And now you have the modern day powwow, which I think you can have a more appreciative mindset towards the art that's involved with it. And that's the singing and the dancing. Cause you set those two things aside and you look at them for what they are, and they're art forms, man. There's some art forms there. Seriously. And especially in the outfit making and things like that, those are art forms to a lot of the people who revere powwow culture, as as you say, connected.
The Buffalo Bill thing is interesting because when I think about that, I think about almost the idea of a culture sort of repackaged, of it turned purely into, in a sense, a spectacle.
And that's cool. Like, I mean, back then, the pageantry, the regency of a lot of stuff was just, pedestalized, or just like, there they are, the grand Indians and the grand entry. Here they come. That type of thing would be, something to keep up, kind of like as a Showtime type of thing. For the most part, I think what came of, the modern day powwow is, the contest money and things like that. There's a difference between, going to a powwow and seeing, contests, and you go into a different powwow that you'll see little to none. And, there's that to differentiate between the two, what is a contest powwow and what they call a traditional powwow. But the traditional powwow is just, no contest involved, although they might be paying the traveling singers and dancers a gift for coming and traveling there. But for the, non-contest powwows are strictly about the vibes and, just being there, especially if it's your home. Not every tribal community has a contest powwow. So for the most part, it might be just your hometown traditional powwow that you just go and check out and just be a part of, and see a lot of friends and family from your home community. I try to not use reservation as a term on purpose because I think that's just a terminology that we have to start to avoid and reverse. So I like to just say our home communities. Better way of saying that.
One of the things I was curious about, and community is an interesting term, right? Because it at least theoretically expands beyond a geographical border in what you would traditionally consider a reservation. And I got the sense that you didn't grow up exactly on the reservation, but close to.
No, sir. I grew up 4 hours south of my home reservation of Red Lake.
So not that close at all.
Not that close at all, but once you learn how to drive, then it becomes very closer. There's some land speed records. I know there's a few that have made the trip from Red Lake to Minneapolis and some illegal times. But I've grew up, born and raised Southside Minneapolis. That's me. That's where I grew up.
You're a city kid.
I'm a city kid. Yeah. So I born and raised Minneapolis, Minnesota, all my life. But we did visit my grandma every summer in Red Bee, Minnesota, right by the water tower. I was there every summer, going to the celebrations and the parades that we have up there for our Independence Day, July 6th. Red Lake is the true sovereign nation of the whole United States. So we're different. That's just all I could really just explain it. True sovereignty lies in how you solidify yourself to an outside governing nation, So I think we solidified that enough to call ourselves one of the only true sovereign nations in the United States. So I'm proud to call that place home, even though I grew up 4 hours south.
What does that mean in this context of being sovereign?
No boundaries. Although we do recognize our, the boundaries that they gave us and things like that. But, our home was the lake. So it's what with this project, I knew that it would be different. I knew that it would, set itself aside from everything else, which is, sovereign, being a sovereign person, doing your own thing on your own terms and living by it. Yeah, that's what had to come of my mentality, releasing this, because this was just, something that was between Broder and myself.
I will admit to the fact that I don't know that you necessarily would have crossed my radar and that we would have crossed paths and that we would be talking if you hadn't really put yourself out there in this way.
I think Broder had his way of really explaining that to me. But the first thing he did was understand my withdrawals about putting myself outside of my group. I am a drum group member, if not, one of the leaders now. It never used to be that way. But, as things happen and, carry on with life, I'm beginning to be one of the older guys now. So to really think of myself above the team. I guess I've never had that mindset in my life, but Broder quickly exclaimed that it's not what this is. You know, you did something cool, man, and I think people should hear it. And you know, all that stuff, you know, doesn't matter because you know, I know you not to be that way, not that type. You're not that type of guy, and you know, this is what came of our friendship and just, you know, some pen pal stuff, you know.
I'll interview a lot of jazz artists or blues artists or hip hop MCs, and the word authenticity often comes up, but it means something very different when you're talking about making like authentic jazz music. This is sort of next level, right? You know, the concerns over authenticity are, and I suspect a piece of that is how closely you want to hew to the more traditional sides of things and the music that you've been making, and how much you want to explore it and expand outside of that comfort zone.
Exactly. Like, you know, thinking about what this is, or what, you know, was going on in my mind, I guess you could say, was that, you know, experimental range of, you know, hey, let's try this, or, you know, what does it sound like this or like that. I literally just played, you know, after I got, you know, Broder's, you know, permission, or I guess, you know, he jumped on board with the whole thing, or he realized, or we both kind of had that conversation with like, this is what it is. I'm not trying to be an indigenous drummer or nothing like that. And I just was like, I want you to be the Broder drummer. So when, you know, I was making this, it wasn't really something that was like thought out. Like Broder says, like none of this is to the grid. I got to go put this to some kind of a grid.
There's no guideline for doing a project like this.
Exactly. So, you know, just the process of, you know, experimenting, or really just kind of letting my mind flow from, you know, just what I've already been doing with other artists, or, you know, things have been sampled this way or that way. Very few have given me the freedom to kind of place it where, you know, it kind of sounds on beat to me. But I you know, leave that aside to the professionals. So, but this time I had full reins, and, you know, what I was asking of Broder, I made pretty clear, with something that I kind of came up with myself, but I knew that he could bring it to life, was, you know, just give me some sort of a tempo, or what you think, you know, a good pace of, you know, some noises would be. And, you know, I wanted the Marijuana Death Squads loud. I wanted the Broder sounds. And, you know, I just wanted something to, you know, not really a tick, but, you know, something to just sing over. And most of those songs on the album are just me listening and singing. So there's only like one or two of those songs that are actually in song form, I guess you could say, in powwow song form.
You didn't need a click track necessarily.
No, but the improv of me singing, like all of, like, I don't want to say they're freestyles, but, you know, I sat with that track, you know, for a long time, and then I just started singing.
There is a very real sense in which it was almost like making a hip hop record.
I guess, you know, and
he gave you beats and then you played a track over them.
And I, you know, one take Hove, you know, you know, that's what I felt like, you know. That's one of I used to listen to the Dynasty at the bus stop endlessly when that came out. And then I knew that, you know, some rappers didn't rap, or they didn't write down their rhymes. It was in their head.
Off the dome.
It was in their head. So that, you know, at a young age, I figured that stuff out. And then, you know, having basketball teams, you know, where guys are literally, you know, freestyling on the bus. Those are some of my, you know, inspirations early, just being involved in, you know, just the city culture, and just this being a collaborative person in school, you know, without the music, you know, just having, you know, lots of friends of different races, and, you know, just always in tune with other things that are different. So this to me, I guess you could say, is, you know, walks that hip hop line. But, you know, just I really wanted to just be in the moment of what he sent me. So whatever came out was, you know, something that I had to quickly remember and repeat. So that was the challenge of it. But he did keep a lot of my vocals that I sent first.
The process of making the record is interesting to me, because it sounds like maybe before even all of that happened, that you sent him a bunch of clips. Is that right?
I sent him something that I was doing in my certificate program for audio and music production and stuff. They had this, the beat making class, as a requisite class. I was not trying to be a beat maker whatsoever. I was just trying to fine tune my mixing skills. So, just taking the class with an open mind, I just was like, this is cool, this is fun, but I wasn't a beat maker. But then I kind of had the feeling that we were going to come to the point where there was going to be the world beat. Here comes the world beat, and then, I'm like, yes, that's me. They're just, I'm used to being classified in that corny way. Anyways,
it's very funny to be like a indigenous person and be classified as a world beat, right?
But I knew it was my time to shine. So there's a certain style of song that I distorted like halfway. Like I just put a really hard limit on it, and it just, all you heard was and I sent it, then half of the song wasn't distorted. It faded into the regular song, and, that was my project, whatever. But that, that I sent that distorted sidestep to Broder, and I said, can you give me something like that first half about not the exact tempo, but could you snap that to the grid? He said, probably not, but, I could probably give you the tempo or, try to give you some things that's kind of like that. But, let me think about it first. I don't want to be the appropriator guy, things like that. I'll get back to you. So then he got back.
He said that he didn't want to be a cultural appropriator.
He was, he's a very respectful dude. I love Broder, Broder to death. Love Broder to death. And he's just so conscious of that type of stuff. And that was just like, he was, let me think about it, dude. Tell me more about what you're thinking. That type of thing. So, I kind of, talked him off the ledge kind of, but I just was like, dude, like, man, I've been doing this for the past, 5 or 6 years anyways, just randomly popping up on, different people's stuff. And I think it's time for me to try to nail this myself. This, he was down. So after that, he immediately sent me like 5 or 6 right off top. And it was just like literally 6 minutes of just a repetitive loop of just whatever it was. And I just told him that's exactly what I wanted. Send me 6 minutes of what turned out to be some sort of, different things that he actually recorded himself, and looped it somehow to make it, sound cool. Yeah. Like you said, like the one that's coming out next week was the very first one that he sent me. And yeah, man, the rest is that.
I mean, the two of you sounds like were generally travel in fairly different circles. How did the two of you cross paths?
Eau Claire's Music Festival. The Eau Claire's Music Festival put on by, the Bon Iver family, Justin Vernon and all those wonderful people who put that festival on. It was actually from my younger brother, Dylan Jennings, another person who I consider a brother, is actually my adopted brother now through the ways. But he had a friend that got us that gig, I guess you could say. But they were really, adamant about us being there. I sang with Midnight Express at the time, and we were traveling that summer, and it was explained to the Eau Claire's crew that, they would have to compensate us as if we were winning first place. So, but that was not important to us after I seen the bill.
But everybody wants to make money, making stuff.
I'm like, okay, so I'm looking up all these people before I even, show up to the thing. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be cool. They were kind of on the fence about it because they were like, well, people usually just don't be like, oh, okay, well, here. Oh, you want, that kind, you want that, cause like, I mean, we know gigs, some types of gigs, but this was, a little too good to be true at first. But after I seen who it was, I just was like, we got to do this, man.
Even when you see that, I think the thing I would fear going into a music fest of very different kinds of music is you don't want to feel like you're a sideshow
or the token. Right. Yeah. I totally agreed with all of that stuff. But then I also thought about, why can't we be alongside of these people? Why couldn't we be? They were asking us not to be just as the, that type of thing. We just had to switch up our approach a little bit.
How'd you switch it up?
We just took the weekend off and just said, let's just go with it, man. Let's just go with it. let's go there as if we're competing. Let's go there and sing like we're trying to get judged and we're getting tens every time. Let's go there and sing our toughest, our loudest, and let's smack them in the face. Because hey, let's show them that we do belong up here.
It wasn't like, let's make something more in line with this kind of music.
No, it was just hey, you know what? We don't need a speaker, loud system, or nothing. We're going to pound the shit out of this dead animal hide and sing as loud as we can in your face. And if you didn't ever see it before, now you've seen it. So at first it was just to be alongside, not really inclusion, more along the exposure type things. But that first interaction with the drum backstage that Mr. Vern had, you know, having conversations with him at that first Eau Claire really kind of, you know, shifted my path just a little bit. He seen me with this recorder I have right here, this very same recorder. I record all the time. I'm an archivist. But he seen me with this recorder and he just said, hey, man, you record? And I'm like, yeah, man, I have like this really huge archive. And he just like was, tell me more. So he's like, man, that sounds interesting. Can I help you in any way? And I'm just like, you just sat here and asked me, you know, what it was. I didn't say, can you, you know, I didn't insinuate that he had to help me. It just was, you know, his nature. And I just said, well, you know, we just can keep in touch and just, you know, maybe we can put this somewhere, or, you know, I really just want to go get more and just keep, you know, building onto it and go get all the recordings and records and all this stuff. So that first conversation must have planted a seed in his mind somehow. Because then after that, after we did the whole festival and everything, I quickly realized, or a few of us quickly realized what just happened, you know. We just, you know, rubbed elbows, or, you know, just sang our hearts out in front of these wonderful musicians that are just, they're just good people, you know, and we did something that was right. And the conversations that, you know, we had at those first Eau Claires kind of put us in the rotation of, you know, hey, we're going to keep coming back here. Then we started getting a little bit collaborative, where different, over the years, different musicians or bands would ask us to collaborate on stage or on the little side stages that they would have. One of my favorites was opening for Low, and that was in, you know, this little side stage in the woods, and it was, you know, perfect Low vibes. It's like, oh, it was intense. But that was like one of my favorite things. So then, you know, I'm starting to think like, okay, you know, I've been kind of like a music type of person my whole life, but it's all been by ear, you know? So the early years, I'm thinking to myself in the back of my mind, like, how can this happen? And I think Vernon was thinking, JV was thinking about that too. Like, dang, I want to collaborate, but how, you know, how are we going to do it? And it was very cool. The over the years at Eau Claire's, just kind of doing the things with the different artists. But then, you know, things just started going in my mind, like, man, I know it could be done like a certain different way, but I didn't know the different way yet, you know? So it was just, you know, an opening of some sort of, like, it tapped into some creativity into my mind that was always there. I just was, you know, too lazy to bring it out, I guess.
Not too lazy, but it's, I mean, maybe too lazy. Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
But also there's just no, like, there's no rule book. There's no instruction book for how to incorporate these things. And I suspect, like, based on that and based on Justin Vernon seeming like a pretty thoughtful guy, that he probably had similar, if not misgivings, hesitations as Andrew Broder.
He was just pushing forward the love that he had and that he felt when he first heard what we did in front of his face, where he just was very, you know, emotional. And the words that he said that I tell a lot of people is that he said, I've never heard anything like that in my life before, which was talking about a guy, a pretty sonically tuned guy, meaning that, you know, he's probably heard a lot. And, you know, taking those words from him also steered me in the direction of, hey, man, maybe, you know, maybe we should just keep conversating with Justin, man, because, you know, he's about the people, man. And that's what singers, powwow singers are about, or just, singers of indigenous backgrounds is, we do it for the people, man. And it was easy, first off, that he was definitely just a good dude.
You collaborated with him on record as well.
Yeah. That was shortly after that. I think it was the first we finally got, emails back and forth with Dylan and things like this. He invited Midnight Express out to April Base, and we had the opportunity to record there if we wanted to. But he was working on I, but I think he was just like, he just released 22 million. I think he just released that one, but then he was working on stuff at the time that we were there at April Base, which was like our first time there. We kind of didn't know what it was. They kind of gave us a background of, what it was. It was kind of like a living space / creative space. But it was, Justin's, creative spot. And, the old April Base, now it's, being renovated and things like that. But, being there and being welcomed there, that was, it felt like, we were at another powwow singers. We travel, so, we go, sometimes we travel to other families' houses, and it just felt like we were just at, someone else's house. But it was, the house was full of creative people, and it was really surreal to me to be spending the night and with a lot of those people that were there at the house.
Obviously, this is like kind of zeitgeisty. A lot of people talk about these days, but this idea of like imposter syndrome, of like feeling like, do I belong here? What am I doing here? And there must have been a sense of that. It's just based on one, the level that he's been able to tame, but also how different the thing is that you're making.
Just even just the stuff that never even came out on any album or anything like that, like the jam sessions that we've had, just him on the guitar while we're singing, like he was very, very cautious about that, like, hey man, can I just like jam out on my guitar while you guys are like singing? And so I'm like, yeah man,
yeah, I guess so, Bon Iver, I guess,
go bang on the drum set, do what you like. If that, you know what I mean, like there's nothing that I've learned to say that's wrong, or that's wag your finger type stuff. But it's like, just he gave us a chance to be creative in our own minds too. I think he kind of, like I said, he like just some of that just opened a box in my mind of, hey man, let's try to just freestyle a little bit of something over the beat that he gives us. So that first visit at April Base, we cut the stuff that he used for We on I. Most of my singers had to be elsewhere, but I did have someone come that last Sunday, and his vocals made the I track as well. So that I track was, there was plenty of times to fix up those vocals and everything, but they wanted to keep those ones. So
he wanted it raw and real.
Yeah, that's fine. That was okay with me. I was, just being there and watching him create a few of those other songs that ended up on the album. It was, it was awesome. It was just really, really eye-opening to me. Being, a premature sound nerd at the time, I just was like, oh, like everything was a little bit overwhelming. But then once we had the chance to go back once or twice, just to, in passing, or just, being at Eau Claire's. There's been some stuff that hasn't made the album that has just been, pretty cool. So it's all been a loving relationship, and they've been nothing but respectful, and they've never asked us to do anything like we've always been expected to. Like, hey, can you do the drum like this, or can you sing like this, or they're like, do what you do, man. It's fucking awesome. Do what you do. And, it's cool with us.
When you get those sorts of requests, I mean, is there a sense that that people have a almost like stereotypical idea of what that should sound like?
I cringe because I know the word chant is coming to describe what we're doing. That's how I know, that's why one of the song on the albums is, that's why we kind of led with I wanted to lead with no chants, was to just kind of start that conversation of eliminating that terminology, like reservations and things like that. We just got to get rid of that.
Forgive me, why is chant problematic?
So when I was growing up, I never, ever heard it referred to as chanting. So if I became a powwow singer and am a powwow singer, I've always referred to it as singing, and I've always heard people refer to it as singing.
It's like othering it almost, that it doesn't fit into this category with what we consider singing.
Yeah. So might be just a regular school term for us, but it's we've never ever looked at it as chanting. We've probably joked around just to fuck around like how we are, but it's like, hey man, you want to go chant later? Yeah, sounds good. All right, man, see you there, or something like that.
Ironically,
right? But just to kind of put that out there, like I've never referred to it as chanting, so I think that's just the kind of how everyone should kind of start to view it as. Ask the chanter if they ever chanted before. I don't think they'll admit to that.
In the same way that it seems ridiculous to call it world music, but like to be a cultural ambassador. I mean, obviously a cultural ambassador for a culture that like this country was, founded on, but that a big part of this is to just say like, I'm giving you a window into this thing, but also like, hey, here's kind of how you should think about it and how you should approach it and be sensitive to it.
Yeah, man. I'm here for that. I'm patient enough to have those conversations.
You've got 5 children, so you got to
have 5 children. Yes, not under one roof, thankfully. But
still, it's a lot of patience.
I just especially explaining, what I tell people, like when they say, "Oh, I'm sorry," I didn't know that before, or now that I know now, it's okay with me. I just understand how educational systems are, and you don't get that much exposure in schools for certain type of reason, and not everyone kind of has that person to take that time and really kind of talk to them about it.
And you're a good enough judge of character that you can like tell what someone's intent is and whether or not they're being malicious.
Yeah, totally, man. It's a part about growing up in the city, man. You got to know them headlights.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, what you're trying to take it in this new direction insofar as I know the album is still getting out there, but what has the reaction been like in the community?
Very, very minimal so far. The people who I've shared it with, they share it to people and stuff like that. Just the way that I've looked at this before it released is, I didn't make this for everyone. Therefore, everyone might not latch onto it right away. I did make this solely for my family. The people who have, watched me grow up to be who I am, a father, husband, things like that. They know who I've been over the last 5 years. They know that I've either on my way to, I just came from, or I am currently doing some sort of collaborative work in some sort of field. I feel like the time was right to create something like this, especially at the quarantine and everyone at home and things like that. But creatively, this helped me through a grieving process. I lost a few close brothers of ours, and it was just a way to express myself in an art form new to me, but new to everyone. So when I was going through that, I knew that, this wouldn't really be accepted, it wouldn't be splashed everywhere. And I was okay with that because I made this, for myself and my own healing, in that part of being selfish, but for my family. I did this solely for my family and to show how much I care about them, and, just, I can create something, something totally different, but I could show people that it's okay to step out of that box and just be different and just, create any art that your heart desires. And that's basically what I did.
And how has the reaction in the family been?
They love it. Channel 1222 was a little bit hard for me to kind of put out there, just because of the tone of voice that I was using. I usually don't sing in that voice unless, only my children have heard me sing in that voice before. And, I did sing that as if I were singing to them. That's the train of thought that I got into when Broder sent me that pulsating heartbeat type of, beat.
You're talking
Vulnerability, and just, opening that up, that part of, my singing persona up, I guess you could say, is a little hard, a little difficult. But, I had to really, show myself at that point, because throughout that whole process of making the album, I was, pretty vulnerable, man. I was pretty hurt, losing, some people who have been around my life these last 10 years, been an important part of my life, people who I've taken care of. There's some hurtful things that go on. So for me to go through that process and really kind of just be vulnerable and just be artistic in whatever way I felt, that was the best way to express that and get that off my chest. But, I did make it for everyone. I don't want to put that out there like that. But, I just, marijuana death squads isn't for everyone. You know what I mean? And, that's the vibe I wanted to put across there. If your ears don't want to get smacked in their mouth, don't listen to this.
It's not for everyone, but it's also, there's this sense in which when you put something out into the world, it's not just yours anymore.
Yeah, no, I understood that too. I understood that. Bro to put that there. And, he said, well, hey, now your family will have it forever. And I said, there you go. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. And that's, that's far more important than it picking up steam in my eyes, So I want to keep it, try to keep it humble as possible. Eventually people will, lock into this, and I think they'll appreciate the full project when it releases as a whole.
The notion of mourning through music is interesting to me, and it's something that has come up in a lot of conversations that I've had around the pandemic and just, broadly what's going on with the world right now. But I feel like I've gotten the sense from a lot of artists, musicians, especially that I talk to, that making music during a pandemic is their way of processing all of the pain in the world right now.
Internalizing a lot, having conversations with that dimension in your head, really just coming to terms with, especially as a young man, as a young indigenous man who, are always constantly, attentive to, what's going on around them, and just really trying to bear all of this, what's going on in the world, as you say. Why aren't we stronger men to ourselves mainly? We're always worried about all this. We got to help the women. The women are stronger than we'll ever can be. And we shouldn't never sit there and coddle, what I'm saying? Because they're strong on their own. They will slap us up so quick, but we have to be able to, as Native men, to slap ourselves up and really just pick ourselves up, because everyone around us, whether it's men or women or children, they need a strong Native somebody, and I just am trying to be that somebody, especially coming out of a time where you had a chance to internalize a lot and really trying to think about yourself and where you're going, how you're going to get there. All that came to mind, especially as a leader of a drum group, bringing on, younger than you, young men, and learning how to manage them. Can't be any more difficult than my 8th grade basketball team, but, we could make it work. And, just being in the pandemic and thinking and just thinking about grief and why you feel this way, why are you feeling this way? Music was a huge part of that, whether it was me doing what I did or just, going back and listening to different things that I just come across, just really kind of living in that moment and just, like you said, being vulnerable even without making music.
Looking at it abstractly, these are two diametrically opposed ideas, right? Strength and vulnerability. But it sounds like with this project, they're very linked for you.
Very much so. Very much so. I knew that the space for the really powerful, in your face tracks, I knew the beat was going to be, for Broder. The voice that I sing in throughout the project is kind of like a teaching voice. just because I knew spatially that I had to be like in a certain space while, you know, the strings are up here and like, you know, his synths are down here. I needed to live somewhere in between. So I had to like, you know, kind of harness a little bit of my voice and kind of project it in a different type of way.
Teaching in the sense that if you were teaching someone a song, that's the voice you would use.
Teaching someone a song, right? So usually you'll see us, you know, powwow singing and stuff like with each other, you know, kind of full blast type of thing, you know. This is a little bit more drawn back, but also really like a helpful aid to, you know, what Broder's brewing in the background. So yeah, I wanted to be conscious of that, but then at the same time, I wanted to use that teaching voice just because just usually, you know, people always just go for the full blast right away. Like that's what they have to have. I wanted to kind of draw back, but then, you know, just also let Broder do more with that instead of, you know, having a really hot vocal, you know what I mean?
The 1222 voice it's softer.
That's the you know, team soft voice as we call it.
Library singing.
Pretty much, but you know, in the sense of what I was thinking, you know, making that song was, you know, I was singing my kids to sleep or to calm them, or even when they're wide awake, you know, I would sing to them in that tone. So but that's for them to find out if they listen to this, or, you know, if they ever ask.